Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News. It's Monday, October 17th here in Korea. There's a political feud raging over the memoir of Korea's former foreign minister. The ruling and the main opposition party are now sharply divided over an account from the memoir that states that Moon Jae-in, seen by many as a strong contender to become the nation's next president, asked North Korea for its opinion on human rights issues before a UN vote. Our Park Ji-won is watching the developments.
Former Foreign Minister Song Min-soon's account of a decision made during the Roh Moo-hyun administration has set off a firestorm in domestic politics. The account, told in a section of the memoir released last week, details South Korea's decision to abstain from a 2007 vote on a UN resolution on North Korea's human rights record. Based on Song's account, Moon Jae-in, who was the chief of staff to the late president at the time, reportedly proposed that South Korea ask for North Korea's opinion on the matter before the vote. Seoul ended up abstaining from the vote, but President Roh later expressed regret about the decision and said Seoul shouldn't have asked for Pyongyang's opinion on the matter. Since the revelation emerged last week, the ruling Saenuri party has lobbed harsh criticism at Moon and the opposition parties, accusing them of conspiring with the enemy. They said it makes no sense for South Korea to have sought North Korea's approval on the matter and called for a parliamentary hearing to get to the bottom of the issue. Moon, the former chairman of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea and a presidential hopeful in 2017, said it is deeply insulting for the Saenuri party to accuse him of conspiracy, and he accused the party of not having its own philosophy of inner Korean relations. Lawmakers close to Moon said that he initially favored voting for the UN resolution, and he wanted to respect the opinions of the majority of his staff. The minor opposition People's Party also had a strong reaction to the unfolding controversy. It said the ruling party is not in a position to point fingers at the opposition when the party and the presidential office are at the center of corruption allegations surrounding key figures, including Choi Soon-sil, who allegedly used her personal ties to President Park Geun-hye to solicit donations for two foundations. The presidential office has also responded. At a regular briefing, the presidential spokesperson said it would be serious and shocking development if the account of the events in the memoir were true. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Now to Seoul and Washington's efforts to rein in North Korea. The two allies are set for high-level talks in Washington this week, where they will seek to enhance their extended deterrence against Pyongyang's nuclear threats. At the security consultative meeting set for Thursday, South Korea's Defense Minister Han Min-gu and U.S. Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter are likely to discuss the deployment of more U.S. strategic weaponry to the peninsula to deter further North Korean provocations. The U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Ronald Reagan, is currently docked at a port in Busan after taking part in a joint South Korea-U.S. naval drill last week. Prior to the big gathering, the two defense chiefs will hold a 2+2 meeting with South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and his U.S. counterpart John Kerry to discuss additional sanctions on North Korea for its September 9th nuclear test. The protracted economic slowdown in Korea is weighing on the job market, and there's no exception for people with degrees from four-year colleges, as good quality and well-paying jobs are quickly drying up amid the sluggish economy. Kim Min-ji tells us more.
In yet another signal that Korea's labor market is in dire straits, nearly 1 in 3 people who are currently out of work have a degree from a four-year university or higher. According to Statistics Korea, the number of unemployed came to 985,000 in the third quarter of this year, while 315,000, or almost a third of the total, had graduate degrees. The figure is the highest since relevant data began to be compiled in 1999, and it's also the largest proportion of people with degrees who are out of work. Even in the aftermath of the Asian financial crisis in 1999, the proportion of unemployed people with university degrees stood at only 12%. However, the figure has been on a steady climb since 2011, with the exception of a slight dip in 2014. Experts attribute the rise mainly to the country's high university entrance rate. The rate stood at almost 71% in 2014, the highest in the OECD. As a result, although there are more university graduates, there's a mismatch in employment due to a lack of quality jobs amid a sluggish economy. The overall jobless rate stood at 3.6% in September, the highest for that month in 11 years. The youth jobless rate came to 9.4%, also the highest monthly figure tallied since 1999. And in another reflection of the feeble job market, the number of people in Korea who work 17 hours or less a week hit a 5-year high in the third quarter this year. The figure stood at around 1.3 million in the July to September period, up 91,000 from a year ago. The rise was attributed in part to the government's push to offer flexible working hours for women who previously had difficulty finding work after giving birth or because of child-rearing responsibilities. Another reason cited was the weak economy, which has forced companies to hire more part-time workers than full-time employees. 김민지, 아리랑 뉴스.
China has launched its manned spacecraft, the Shenzhou 11, into orbit. The rocket carrying 2 astronauts lifted off from the Jichuan Satellite Launch Center in western China at 7:30 a.m. Monday local time. Less than 30 minutes after the launch, Chinese authorities said everything had gone off as planned. The Shenzhou 11 will dock with the Tiangong 2 Space Lab on Tuesday, and the 2 astronauts will stay on board for 30 days, the longest stay in space by Chinese astronauts. They'll spend the month carrying out medical and space experiments. China's manned spaceflight program started in 1992, and through it, the country hopes to develop a permanent space station by the early 2020s. And that does it for now. I'll be back with more headlines at 4 p.m. Korea time. Don't go away.